The night Devon froze over, silence took on a new meaning. It was February 8th, 1855, and the storm had passed, leaving a thick white sheet of snow draped across the countryside like a burial shroud. In the village of Topsham, no one expected what would come next. The morning sun revealed something that shouldn't exist, something that made hardened farmers drop their tools and whisper prayers under their breath. Footprints, hoof-like, deep, perfectly spaced. But not just a few. They went on for miles, stretching across frozen fields, snaking through alleyways, and disappearing over rooftops. These weren't the prints of any known animal. They defied logic, walking in straight lines over haystacks, crossing frozen rivers, even scaling vertical walls without breaking rhythm. And worst of all, they never turned back. It was as if something had walked through Devon in the dead of night, unseen and unstoppable. 168 years later, Arthur Bell stared out of his car window as the icy wind pushed sleet against the glass. He was returning to a place he had sworn never to set foot in again, the crumbling farmhouse of his childhood on the outskirts of Devon, now his after his father's quiet, lonely death. He hadn't spoken to his father in over a decade, not since the night of the cellar incident. Arthur pulled up the drive. The house looked the same, slanted roof, bramble-choked path, and a single broken window covered with plastic tarp. But as he stepped out into the cold and looked down at the thin layer of snow forming beneath his boots, he saw it. A trail. 1, 2, 3 prints, perfectly even, deep and sharp, shaped like cloven hooves. He blinked. Then the wind howled, sweeping over the path, erasing them instantly like they were never there. Maybe he imagined it. Maybe it was just the cold playing tricks on his city-softened mind. Inside the house, the musty air greeted him with memories, some warm, most unwanted. He turned on the boiler, lit the stove, and went upstairs to the room that used to be his. Dust coated everything, but the place was untouched otherwise. Then came the first knock. 3 soft, deliberate taps on the front door. Arthur froze. He looked at the time, 2:58 a.m. No one should be here. He crept to the window and peered out. Nothing. Just the vast white emptiness of the countryside under moonlight. When he opened the door, the porch was empty. But the snow had changed. There were hoof prints, leading from the edge of the forest straight to his doorstep. And not a single one turned back. Narration fades in with a whisper. In Devon, they say when the devil walks, the snow remembers. He leaves no scent, no sound, only the trail of those who follow him. Arthur wiped sweat from his brow despite the chill. He was being pulled into something old, something his father had never spoken of. And now, as he stood surrounded by the silence of snow and the shadows of past sins, he wondered, was it coming for him next? Or had it always been here, waiting? The next morning, Arthur tried to convince himself it had all been a dream. He made coffee, fed the stray cat that lingered near the barn. He even walked out to the spot where he saw the hoof prints last night. Nothing. The snow was undisturbed, smooth, pristine. But inside, something gnawed at him. The unease wasn't gone. If anything, it had settled deeper, like a splinter under the skin. In the cellar. He hadn't planned to go down there. In fact, he had avoided the cellar ever since he arrived. Memories from years ago flickered in his mind. That night, the flickering oil lamp, the strange murmurs from the walls, his father screaming, "Don't touch that door!" But that morning, while searching for firewood, Arthur noticed the old cellar door was slightly ajar, as if it had been opened recently. The metal latch, the one his father kept padlocked at all times, was lying on the floor, broken clean in half. His breath caught. He hesitated at the top of the wooden steps. A draft of air, colder than the rest of the house, wafted up toward him. Not musty, not earthy, cold like stone, cold like winter air. He took a step down, then another. The wooden stairs creaked under his weight, groaning like they remembered him. At the bottom, everything was exactly as it had been. Rusted shelves, old tools, jars of preserves long expired. But one thing was different. The back wall, the one made of old slate, had a door that shouldn't be there. It was small, arched, made of blackened wood with no handle, just a faint carving at its center, a symbol like a hoofprint surrounded by thorns. Arthur stared. He couldn't remember it being there before. His father had always forbidden him from that part of the cellar, even boarded it off once. But now, the door seemed to pulse in the shadows, not visibly, but with presence. Then he heard it, scraping, on the other side of the door, like something pacing, claws or hooves dragging against stone. Arthur backed away slowly, heart pounding, and then, thump! The door shook. Just once, but it was enough. He bolted back up the stairs, slamming the cellar door shut behind him and jamming a chair beneath the handle. The journal. Later that night, he found the journal. It was buried in the attic beneath a pile of rotting floorboards. His father's handwriting, meticulous, rigid, paranoid. Feb 8, 1973. Snow again. Hoofprints. Same pattern. Same direction. They never return. Feb 10. I heard the knock. 3 taps. Always 3. I didn't answer. Feb 12. The door is waking up. I hear it breathing. Feb 14. Arthur saw it. He was only 8. I think it marked him. Feb 15. I can't let it through. Not again. Arthur closed the book. His fingers trembled. He had always thought his father was just strange, a hermit, paranoid, broken by loneliness and the cold. But what if he wasn't? The whisper. That night, Arthur lay awake, staring at the ceiling, until he heard it. From the floor below, 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. He didn't move, didn't breathe. And then, a whisper, just outside the bedroom door. Arthur. The voice wasn't his father's. It wasn't anyone's. It sounded ancient, like wind scraping against ice, like a name being remembered by something that had forgotten how to speak. When he finally gathered the courage to open the door, the hallway was empty. But at the end of the hall, in the moonlit dust on the wooden floor, hoofprints leading straight to his room. Arthur didn't sleep after that. He sat in the corner of the room, an old fire poker clutched in his shaking hands. Every creak of the walls felt like a whisper. Every brush of wind against the window felt like breath. By morning, the hoofprints were gone, as if they had never been there. But Arthur knew better now. He wasn't imagining things. Something had come up from the cellar, and it knew his name. The library. Desperate for answers, Arthur drove into town, to the dusty, seldom-used library on Main Street. Most of the books there were old farming logs, forgotten local histories, and yellowed news clippings. But tucked in a locked cabinet marked Local Lore and Folklore was a leather-bound journal labeled The Black Trail, an account of the Devil's Visit to Devonshire. It wasn't a proper book, more like a series of handwritten entries compiled by a priest who lived near Dartmoor in the 1800s, the same region where the devil's footprints were first reported. Arthur skimmed through it until a section caught his eye. February 1855. The prints appeared overnight. Hooves like a goat's. No animal could leap across rooftops or pass through walls, yet the trail remained unbroken. We followed them to the church door, and then they vanished. March 1855. A child disappeared. Then an old man. Then a mother drowned in the well. All claimed to have heard knocking. Always 3 times. Always followed by whispers. They called it the Devil's Path. Once marked, he will find his way back, even across centuries, even across oceans. Arthur slammed the book shut. He had to get out of that house. The road out. He packed what he could and left before the sun touched the fields. As he drove down the frost-covered road, something felt off. The trees seemed darker, the snow more pale. His tires crunched loudly through the ice. Then he slammed on the brakes. A shape stood in the middle of the road. Tall, thin, wrapped in a black cloak that fluttered despite the windless morning. Arthur's heart thudded. The figure didn't move. It didn't flinch, just stood, head tilted, long arms hanging at its sides. Arthur blinked, and it was gone. He hit the gas, skidding slightly before speeding away from the woods. But the road never changed. An hour passed, then another, and another. But every twist in the road looked the same. Every patch of snow, every gnarled tree, it was as if he was looping through the same mile of forest. Panic rose. He checked his phone. No signal. The radio crackled, static bursting from the speakers. Then a voice, soft, rhythmic. You cannot run. You were marked before you were born. Arthur yanked the power knob off the radio. He pulled the car over and stepped out into the snow, breath clouding in front of him. Silence. And then he saw them again. The hoof prints, trailing behind his car, as if something had been following him the entire time. The realization. He turned back toward the house. It didn't matter how far he drove. Whatever this was, it wasn't bound by space, or time, or rules. It was following the mark. He remembered the journal entry from his father. Arthur saw it. He was only 8. I think it marked him. This wasn't new. It had waited all these years, patient, watching. Now that he was back, it had returned. Nightfall. He didn't know what else to do, so he drove back to the farmhouse. Not because he wanted to, but because there was nowhere else to go. The forest wouldn't let him leave. When he returned, it was already dark. The wind had picked up. The barn creaked like it was breathing. The windows rattled in their frames. He opened the cellar door slowly. The chair he'd used to block it earlier was split clean in half. The door below, the black... Arthur stood frozen at the top of the cellar stairs. The black door, once sealed and silent, now gaped open like a mouth mid-scream. Inside, there was no light, only thick, choking darkness that pulsed like it was alive. Something was breathing down there, slowly, wetly. It wasn't human. Arthur could feel it, the same sensation from when he was a child. The air had weight now. The house itself seemed to press in on him, like the walls were watching, like they were waiting. A soft creak echoed up from the cellar floor, followed by 3 deliberate knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Not on the wood, but from inside the walls. Descent. Arthur knew he should run, leave, burn the place if he had to. But his legs moved on their own. Down the stairs, into the dark. The smell hit him first, a mix of old soil, blood, and something bitter, sulfuric. As he stepped into the cellar, the temperature dropped sharply. His breath fogged in front of him, then quickly vanished, not fading, but sucked away. There, in the center of the cellar floor, was something new. A trail of hoof prints, fresh, leading through the open black door into the earth. The hidden passage. The tunnel beyond the door was impossibly old. Jagged stone, slick with damp moss, and marked with carvings. Symbols Arthur didn't recognize. Some resembled goats' heads. Others were eyes. Hundreds of them watching from the walls. Each step deeper brought a pressure behind his ears, like something was whispering just beneath the edge of hearing. He finally emerged into a stone chamber, circular, hollow, and in the middle, a pedestal made of black rock. Upon it sat a small, rusted iron box. The trail of hoofprints ended there. Arthur approached slowly, heart pounding. He opened the box. Inside was a piece of parchment, old, brittle, written in what looked like blood. The pact was made. The mark passed to the bloodline. He will walk until it is claimed again. The whisper. Arthur stepped back. Suddenly, the chamber trembled. The walls groaned, and from every direction he heard it. Arthur. A voice, not booming, not ghostly, but intimate, familiar. It was his own voice, repeated, warped, like something had stolen his tone and was playing with it, mocking him. Then, across the chamber, the shadows thickened, and it stepped forward. A tall, skeletal figure, draped in a rotting coat, hooves blackened with ash, and a face almost human. Its eyes were pitch black, and they locked onto Arthur with ancient hunger. The mark returns to the son, as it did to the father, as it shall to the next. Arthur stumbled back, falling against the wall, but the stone behind him shifted, a secret exit. He didn't hesitate, scrambling through the narrow passage as the figure laughed behind him. Not a loud laugh, a knowing one, as if everything was going exactly as planned. Back to the surface. Arthur burst out into the night behind the farmhouse. He was covered in soil, shaking, blood running from a cut on his forehead. The wind was violent now, and above, storm clouds swirled unnaturally, as if pulled by something deep beneath the ground. The trees bent in submission. Birds flew in chaotic circles. And across the field, he saw them again. The hoof prints, not fresh this time, but glowing faintly. He flipped through pages, frantic, until he found a passage he'd missed before. There is only one way to break the pact. The bloodline must end, or the pact must be transferred willingly. Transferred to someone else. Arthur's mind reeled. He had no family left, no children. But there were others. Others who might be tempted to play the game. And then the idea took hold. He didn't need to outrun it. He just needed to lead it to someone else. Someone who would follow the hoof prints, open the door, pick up the mark. Someone curious. Arthur stared at the journal for a long moment. Then he smiled. The first real smile in days. 2 weeks later, in the small village of Buckfastleigh, Devon, the storm that had once raged above Arthur's farmhouse had long since moved on. The skies were unnaturally clear now, as if something had been fed, as if the earth had exhaled. Arthur had vanished. Locals whispered that he'd finally gone mad, just like his father. Some believed he left the village quietly. Others said they saw him wandering into the woods under the moonlight, barefoot, smiling. But no one had seen him since, except one person. A 22-year-old urban explorer named Mason Lee, known online as @MasonExplores, had posted a cryptic video a week ago. In it, he stood outside a rotting farmhouse, Arthur's farmhouse. He smiled into the camera. Found this abandoned place in Devon. Super creepy history. Something about devil's footprints and a guy who lost his mind. Locals say no one's lived here for decades. I say it's perfect for a new video. I'm going in. And he did. The live stream. Thousands watched Mason's live stream as he toured the broken down house. He joked, he flirted with fear. But somewhere near the cellar door, the mood changed. Whoa, this door wasn't in the pictures. Wait, did someone open this? Guys, I swear it just creaked by itself. Chat messages flew by. Then Mason turned the camera toward the floor. What the hell? Are these hoof prints? The screen shook as he descended the stairs, signal crackling with static. And then blackness. For a full minute, until the stream ended with one final distorted whisper. Welcome. The pattern repeats. Arthur had known what he was doing. He had uploaded an old article online, planted rumors on forums, posted anonymously about the cursed house with the devil's mark. Curiosity was a virus, and someone always came. Now, Mason was gone, just like Arthur. But something had changed. This time, the footprints returned, but not just to the farmhouse. Elsewhere in Devon. In the early hours of the morning, police received dozens of calls. People in surrounding towns reported seeing hoof-like prints in the snow and on rooftops, on windowsills 3 stories high, across rivers. One man swore he saw a tall, cloaked figure standing at the edge of his property. When he shined his flashlight, it vanished, leaving behind steaming prints in the frozen soil. By morning, the national news had picked up the story again. The devil's footprints had returned, 173 years after they first appeared. The final revelation. Back at Arthur's farmhouse, in the cellar, a small red light blinked in the corner of the room. A hidden camera. Recording. Still live. The feed showed only darkness. But if you watched long enough, shapes began to form. Not from the camera, but from your mind. You'd swear you could see something moving. Something tall. Watching. Waiting. And, if you listened closely, a knock. Then another. Then a whisper. It is your turn now. Final words. The devil's footprints were never random. They are invitations. A trail laid out for the curious, the proud, the unbelieving. A path you don't realize you followed until it's too late. And somewhere in the frost-bitten soil of England, new prints begin to appear. One by one, right outside your door.